All right, we make way for Matty Ice, and I ran into him last night, and he said, I'm going to be telling all kinds of stories when I join you on the program. Is Matt ready to go, Paul?
Yes.
Do we need to escort Matt Ryan up here? How about a round of applause for the man they call Matty Ice, tall and lean.
What's up?
Yes.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
How we doing, guys?
Looks like he's dropped like 15, 20 pounds. You're just we see this with offensive and defensive linemen.
Do I need headset?
No.
No?
You're
Okay,
good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just not as muscular, a little softer around the edges, but a little lighter.
But did you try to purposely bulk up?
When I played?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For me, it was always difficult to keep the weight on. Just by kind of, my frame or whatever. It was work to try and get to 220, 217 is what I played at, and I weigh about 205 now. So.
But you just see quarterbacks like ragdolls, but then you see those quarterbacks in person, and like Trevor Lawrence is a big guy.
No doubt. You seen him last night?
Yeah.
I mean, Trevor is, he is put together.
Yeah.
And just broad-shouldered, big, and, we were talking about Cam Newton last night, too. Same thing. Played against him in division. I remember meeting him for the first time and being like, we play the same position? Like, what are you talking about, man? You look like the DNs that I go against. So,
Yes.
there's some big guys, but, I was able to do it pretty well at my size and made it work for me.
But is there, you see Peyton and Brady, and they would kind of go in the fetal position if they were going to be sacked.
Yeah.
That's okay, isn't it?
Listen, your best ability is availability, right? When you can play, right?
Yeah.
And so Tom and Peyton, they kind of had that down to a science. I was kind of in that era of quarterbacks just right after them, right? So I had watched them play in the NFL for 7, 8 years, 9 years before I got there, and then, played. I guess Tom played longer than me. He still was playing after I was done. But
Do you think he could still play?
I think he could. I think the way he takes care of himself, it looks like he looks more fit now than he's ever been. And so, and I think the style with which he played leads to being able to play longer, right? Not moving around, not having to run, do all those type of different things, because he could still throw it. He could still spin it at the end.
Matt sacked 500 times, Paulie?
488 times he was sacked in his career.
Why would
That's on. But you withstood.
I feel pretty good.
You
I still
withstood
feel
it. Look
pretty
at
good.
you.
Yeah, I still feel pretty good. I can still swing the golf club, which is good. And
Is there one that stands out?
one sack that stands out. They all kind of run together when you get about 500 of them. But I'd say the sack fumble in the Super Bowl is probably the one that.
Oh, I wasn't going there.
Listen, I think sometimes you got to get in front of it, right?
Okay,
if you're the guy, you just got to go and get in front of it.
No,
So if you're asking me about one of them, Dan, I would probably say that's the one I would like to have not been sacked on. But anyhow, what else do you guys want to talk about? The college football playoff?
What was that play called? So you're in the huddle and you call that play. What is it?
It's a good question. I don't remember the exact play call offhand. I'm always amazed some of these guys that can rip back from, just off the cuff.
Oh, your guys' memories have to be great.
It's really good. I remember the situation. I remember what the route we had going on. We had Aldrick Robinson running the corner that was coming out like the top of this, and he was going to be open. Like he was going to be open and trying to hang on for that extra second, give him a chance to make a play. But
would that have been a touchdown?
It would have been a chunk. I think there was a chance, but it would have been a chunk play for sure.
But you don't remember the call?
But I can't remember. It was a designer, what we call designer calls. So it was like a specific play for that week, for that situation. So it wasn't like, gun trips right, 3-jet jaws, X drift, which was one of our staple plays. It was a designer play for that week.
Give us a call, though, that might surprise us, the depth of it that you're trying to absorb if you're, a wide receiver, running back.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of staple plays, but like where it gets wordy is in the run game, then canning or killing or checking or whatever you want to a pass play. So, we'd have like West right, Zoomsy right, 19-1 to force, can gun, 3 scat, X-hole spacing.
That's one play.
That's one play. And so, I heard you read the little script coming on here. That was more impressive to me than calling a play, right? Now that I've done TV and I've seen the prompter and having to come in and done some of those things, I find that far more difficult than regurgitating a play call.
Matt Ryan joining us on the program. Yeah, you start to think about making the transition. When did you think about going from playing to then broadcasting?
You know, I've always had fun coming on shows with you or with different guys, and I had the opportunity a couple times while I was playing to go in and do some studio work, one with CBS, one with ESPN, and I enjoyed it. But I really didn't think about it until I was done, you know, and my last year in Indy was a difficult year for the organization, for myself, for everybody that was in it. And so after that, I got back to Atlanta after that season and was kind of talking with my wife about what we wanted to do moving forward. My wife was pregnant with my youngest son at the time. And it seemed like, you know what, probably a good time to be rooted and home. And that's where we started to explore some options. I was really lucky, got hired by CBS, called games for the first year, which was an absolute blast. A ton of fun doing that, and then moved into the studio the next year. So it kind of happened faster than I thought. It wasn't something like I was planning as a player, this is it, this is where I'm going when I'm done.
I was, wondering about this, though. When you get towards the end, when do you know you're at the end of your career?
There were a handful of times in Indy I knew it was, this is probably it.
Okay, but was it because of you?
Listen, I still think I had gas left in the tank, right, to be able to play. That year was a strange year. Like Frank Wright being fired and Jeff Saturday coming in, and I got benched and then came back and played a little bit, and just kind of the whole deal. And then being away, my wife was pregnant with my youngest son, so they were back in Atlanta. She was there kind of visiting with doctors there, and they were back and forth. That whole kind of thing, it wasn't like a wake up. It was just kind of a slow drip to, and I think my life's moving in a different direction.
Did you ever think about trying to join the Eagles?
No, never seriously.
But that's your team growing up.
I grew up, but I played against them enough that they soon did not become my team, right? So
Could you have
it's a
played
tough
for the
place.
Steelers?
Could I have played for the Steelers? Yeah, I think your allegiances, your childhood allegiances,
Yeah.
go out the wayside the minute you get drafted or you get, you put into a building. And so particularly I think when you play for an organization as long as I did in Atlanta, we got a little chipmunk running around there. You got some wildlife on the set,
we do.
which is good.
We had dogs.
Gophers.
We had bomb-sniffing dogs up here earlier. Yeah, we got it all going on
love
here
it,
in
man.
Tahoe.
I love it.
Yeah. We're talking to Matt Ryan. I was wondering about Kirk Cousins in the situation that he's in.
Yep.
Now, he said he was kind of blindsided with the whole Michael Penix draft pick. What do you do in a situation? Now, you can't feel sorry for him from the standpoint of $100 million guaranteed.
Sure.
But he does want to play.
Yeah.
I don't know if no other team was interested because of the $100 million guarantee.
Yeah. I mean, that is, listen, I get both sides of it, right? I get the frustration from Kirk's end, right? You would hope for transparency coming into a situation of what the plan is moving forward. Hey, why are you bringing me in? Is there, what kind of runway are we looking at here with myself? I think from the Falcons' perspective, that was such a deep draft at quarterback, and I think that as I've been removed as a player, my player side of me goes right to Kirk. Of course, I'd be pissed too, right? You're in that situation. I think that's a natural competitor's reaction. Like, what are we doing? We've got other spots we could go. You've heard other quarterbacks say that in buildings where they've been established and they're drafting young quarterbacks, saying, what are we doing? We can add value at different spots. So I think Kirk coming in feeling like he had a 4 or 5 year runway to play there, and then them going in a different direction was probably is difficult for him. But I get the organization standpoint because I do think, when you look at last year's draft, the depth of that quarterback position and then projecting forward, right, what the next 2 or 3 drafts are going to look like and hoping that you're not in a position to draft early, it's the position you've got to take care of. And if you're defending the Falcons, which, I'm biased because I'm played there so long and root for them and all those kind of things, you have to get that position right? And you have to get it right. And when you've got the opportunity to acquire somebody who I think is really talented, I think Michael Penix has a lot of talent, and I think he played really well at the end of the year, you got to do it.
But how did the Niners miss on Trey Lance? How does that happen?
Well, they're not the only ones who have missed on quarterbacks high up there,
but that's
right?
when you trade up and you whiff on a guy.
Yeah, it's...
And And I just thought he didn't have enough starts. I needed a larger sample size.
Well, you go specifically to a Michael Penix. I think one of the things you look at when you draft a guy like that is, yes, there were injury concerns and knee and those kind of things, but there was a large body of work.
Indiana and
Correct.
Washington, yeah.
Right? And I remember the old Bill Parcells, the checklist for drafting quarterbacks was 3-year starters and all of this and, whatever the checklist was. But he wanted a sample size. And I think that's gotten increasingly more difficult. You guys were talking about the college football playoff coming in, but the portal, people moving around, people getting out of there more and more. I think it's hard to get a big sample size of quarterbacks at this point.
When you look at your resume, do you see Hall of Famer?
I've been asked this, and I don't think there's any great way to kind of tote it. I'm proud of what I did, and it's not for me to decide.
But if you were going to convince me,
if I were going to convince you,
let's say I'm a voter.
The numbers are pretty good.
Well, you got the MVP.
Sure.
And you played in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
If you win the
It all goes back to that sack, Dan. It all goes back to that sack, all right? That one sack you wanted to talk about.
Didn't you have one of the great completions that people forget about towards the end of that game?
I was one half of that. The other half was pretty good, too. Julio Jones was pretty good on the other end of that.
There's so many, plays that got forgotten in Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Because you didn't win. Seattle, who was the guy,
Javon Curse?
Yes, forgotten.
Yeah.
One of the great catches in Super Bowl history. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's right. And Julio made that grab, and I go, he just won the Super Bowl.
It's kind of what I was thinking myself at the time, but it didn't quite shake out that way. But
I think you're a Hall of Famer, but, it's tricky. Like somebody says, is Russell Wilson a Hall of Famer? Is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer? Like, I would never want to vote on this. Because you're changing lives.
Sure. So
you got, 45 guys who are in there arguing back and forth, and then, you start to promote, and then you denigrate somebody, and is Russell Wilson playing himself out of the Hall of Fame with the way he's played since Denver and, now with Pittsburgh and then New York?
Yeah. I think you talk about his body of work and the consistency for the better part of a decade and what they did in Seattle. I think there's a lot of guys that probably didn't play. You think of Joe Namath or Johnny Unitas in different uniforms at the end. They're Hall of Famers, right? And they certainly didn't play themselves out of it. But, I think when you talk about Russ, there was so much that he did, and he was so consistent for so long. To me, whether it's the Hall of Fame discussion or whether it's players or whatever, the thing I've always been most impressed with is guys that do it for a long time at the same level over and over and over. And you can kind of check mark what they're going to do when they go out there and perform. I think that's one of the things, regardless of sport, that I've always admired.
Well, you look at Eli. Eli's numbers are average.
Clutch.
Yes. He beat Tom Brady twice.
Yes.
That's why he's a Hall of Famer.
I'll put everybody in, man. I'll put everybody in there.
Is Joe Flacco going in?
Well, I love Joe. But and Joe is a good friend of mine. But
Phillip Rivers, Hall of Famer.
I believe so. Okay. Yeah. You talk about. It's a really interesting time. The league was changing, right? You go from the mid-2000s to really 2020, and the league changed into that pass-first type of offense. Yeah. And you have about 8 or 10 guys that put up numbers that are in the top 10 of the history of the league during that short period of time. I don't know if we'll see that. I don't know if careers will go as long as they did as the style of quarterback play evolves, right? And the exposure to hits and running and those kind of things. And you've seen passing yards come down in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? It's not, we went to the 17th game and you're thinking everybody's going to be throwing for over 5,000 yards. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
And so I think the league has evolved into, how they're running the football. And I think it's bringing those passing numbers down. So I think the numbers, it was an interesting time. And I think there were a lot of really good passers in the league at that time.
Okay. Can I make this statement? Mahomes,
you can make any statement you want.
Okay, but I want to know if you agree. That Mahomes isn't the best quarterback in the NFL, but he's the quarterback you would want in the biggest game.
There's a lot to that statement. The second part, yes, right? His track record, I believe, has proven that. Although the Super Bowl, they didn't have their best performance this past year. But for me, personally, that doesn't change my opinion of Patrick Mahomes, right? If you roll out the ball in the biggest of the big games, yeah, I think he's the guy that you're going to take. I think, how are you pigeonholing that first part of the statement,
Okay,
though?
who's the best quarterback in regular season quarterback? Who is the best quarterback in the NFL?
That's a great question. I think you probably still have to go with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you look at what they did last year.
See, I would say Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow's excellent.
I mean,
Joe Burrow's
he did
excellent.
everything to get them into the playoffs and could have been an MVP candidate. He played that well.
I certainly agree with you. I think Joe
Or Lamar Jackson
and
or
I'm
Josh
of the opinion,
Allen.
I think the league's in a great spot right now with quarterback play. Like, I really do. I think it's really good. But if you're asking me, one regular season game, I'll take Patrick. I'll take Patrick Mahomes.
All right, fair enough. It's just an opinion.
Yeah.
What's your jacket size for the Hall of Fame? What are you, 40?
It's like a 42 long.
Okay, that's what I thought.
You good with that?
That's what I told him.
Yeah. That's what you.
Great to see you again.
Good to see you, Dan.
He's Matt Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
He promised he was telling stories today. My thanks to Matt Ryan, the former MVP, former Rookie of the Year as well. He joined us courtesy of BetMGM and Marriott, making fantasy football dreams a reality. Anybody who links their BetMGM rewards and Marriott Bonvoy accounts between July 9th and the 30th can enter the sweepstakes and win your whole league VIP stay at the Cosmopolitan dinner at the Mayfair Supper Club at Bellagio and an unforgettable draft night party inside BetMGM, hosted by none other than Matt Ryan.